Well, welcome everyone to the next topic we'll be covering in advertising, which is branding and promotions. We're covering story, resonance, and place. For those of you who have done MKTG2033, strategic marketing, or you are, then you'll probably find a lot of this quite repetitive. But if you haven't, let's get straight. So, this is the big theory you need to learn for this topic. This is Keller's Customer Based Brand Equity, CBBE, and this explains how customers established equity in a brand. And you've got on the left-hand side 4 stages of brand development, and on the other right-hand side you can see branding objective at each stage. And in the pyramid there you can see how you work up from the very bottom of brand development and brand objective, all the way to the very top there we have resonance, which is loyalty, attachment, community, and engagement. Advertising can be done targeting each of those 4 stages of brand development. So advertising has a very important role. In particular, you can see on stages 1 to 3, but also even with stage 4, for example, with loyalty, that you may want to work on an ad which focuses on recognizing relationship between brand and consumer. So you can see how advertising works into this area of theory. Now, branding, of course, is a massive area of theory. It's the most dominant practical area of theory you see in Australia today. So learning this pyramid and learning this theory is going to be... So it explains the modern role of advertising in communications with branding, for sure, this theory. And as I just said, it explains all the different and direct roles in influencing CBBE constructs. So in other words, emotional responses towards advertising specifically influences how a consumer may feel about a brand. So you can see that's stage 3 of that model where it kicks in. And so advertisers can just work on that one stage. You're probably wondering how this may also relate to what we talked about last topic with consumer behavior. And what we're looking at here is understanding is that, again, they're all meshed in with each other. They all sort of relate to each other. So an ad can be achieving this whilst at the same time achieving objective when it comes to decision making. So it's something to consider when you write your objectives for your plan, is to think about how that your objectives may actually be quite separate to each other in terms of what they might be achieving with both, say, for example, branding and then consumer behavior, but at the same time be done in the one commercial or the one campaign. So it's something worth considering and thinking about quite carefully, because you'll need to make sure that you get that consistent and get that right. Okay, the other thing here to understand about Keller's customer-based brand equity theory is that it takes a long-term relationship perspective. So branding is all about the long term. You build something up over a long period of time, and then that brand becomes a very, very valuable item. Pardon me. And you've seen that with even how we value brands like Google and Apple and all the big brands out there, and even locally, Woolworths, NAB, CBA, Westpac, Telstra, all the large companies in Australia, Coles, Bunnings, all that type of thing. They all are worth a lot of money because their brand is worth a lot of money, and their brand is worth a lot of money because of the equity placed in them by consumers over other brands which might compete against them. And that's why branding takes a long-term relationship perspective. It's something where you want to build up over a long period of time. And so therefore, this is how advertising relates, is that advertising helps do that over that long period of time. So you might say it focuses as well on stage 4, that brand development. Most modern organizations now, we have these 2 terms emerging: chief brand officer, chief marketing officer, where it lets you know the importance of branding in the organization over all other marketing aspects and areas. So the CBO or the CMO will usually have a brand background, and those people then have direct control over advertising comms. So it lets you know where this theory is ranked when it is compared to advertising communications. Okay, as I did in the consumer behavior topic, and I'll do it again for this one, is here are some questions you probably need to cover and ask yourself in relation to customer-based brand equity. So here's an ad, again, out of a local publication and a local business. This is Corkhill Brothers, very famous here in these parts of Canberra for all your landscaping needs, is to identify how this ad is trying to build customer-based brand equity. So you can look at consumer behavior here as well and go, okay, what methods are they trying to use of consumer behavior to try and build customer-based brand equity? And then you may even want to think about here, which variable of that customer-based brand equity model do you think that this ad has been the most effective at influencing? In other words, variable, you can look at stage or you can look at that process. So, or what aspect of that pyramid even. So you can look at different things here about how this model is being effective with this ad here. And I've got a second one as well. Again, it's a local company and local publication. Again, look at and consider how they might be using methods of consumer behavior to help build customer-based brand equity. And even with the advertising theory itself, also look at and consider what aspects of the ad here are something you need to consider as well with your theory. Okay. Hopefully everyone's going okay. There is some other big theories to cover for this topic. Another one is Akers' 1997 theory on brand and brand personality, and it has also led to a lot of other classic articles based around this theory. So Akers' theory on brand personality covers 5 areas of brand personality, which is sincere, excitement, confidence, sophistication, and ruggedness. So it's a good theory to get to learn because a lot of brands will build themselves around those aspects and then alter their advertising communications to fit into their brand personality as perceived by the consumer. So it is a very significant theory and it really should be read by all of you. But that said, I expect not that to happen. Me not being happy as an academic. So but do come across this theory and do read this theory if you can. I've provided a link there to one of the more seminal papers which have originated out of this theory. So have a look at that paper. And also think about how you could build your brand, as it were, around these brand personality theory. And again, thinking about these examples and the same 2 examples I used before. So example 1 here. Does this organization fit into any of the brand personality dimensions of ACRE, and why or why not? If why not, should we be trying to? So I'm getting you to think about this in a lot deeper perspective here and try to think about these questions and how you might support yourself. So if you're thinking these might make good exam questions, indeed they could. So this is why they're in here, for you to practice early. Could a brand as this benefit from an advertising campaign which tries to build on one of the dimensions of brand personality? Why or why not for that matter? So most questions you'll receive in marketing are always going to be opinion-based. It rares that you get a definition question. And in this case here as well, it's all about your opinion, how you're going to back it up, how you're thinking. In other words, I'm getting you to think critically. I'm getting you to demonstrate what you know. I'm also getting you to tell me what you know in a practical and theoretical context to back up that answer. So it's going to be important when you write any answer to a question in this course that you do 2/3 of your answer should be your opinion and 1/3 of it should be the backup. Whereas a lot of people I find do it the other way around. But try not to do that in this course, particularly when it comes to questions like these. And there is the, pardon me, there is the second example right there. And again, have a look through that and see again what the ad is doing itself in a creative and content way to support what it might be trying to achieve in a branding way. So have a look and consider those different contexts. All right. So this lecture today, or this topic today, also covers destination branding, and that's a pretty big area when you do advertising. In Australia, Some of the biggest spends every single year are by tourism bodies and organisations. So it's worth keeping this area in mind, but also how these are linked into previous areas of branding and advertising and consumer behaviour I've discussed. So, post COVID-19, right now, expect this to be especially the case that destination branding will become a big spend for advertisers in the future because of how quiet we've all been in lockdown and shutdown all across the world. So, expect people to want to travel a fair bit once this is all over and we can all get on planes again. And that means that we'll start to see a lot more campaigns coming onto our screens on different destinations we can go to. In fact, Australia itself has seen some of the most iconic advertising campaigns built around destination branding, such as that example there. Go and have a look at it, please. It's a really great example to look at on how effective Australia has been in the past in this area. It's also done some shockers, a lot of shockers, in fact. And but that's the nature of advertising, is that sometimes the creative is not going to pull it off. It may look good as a creative idea, but if it fails to meet your objectives, then it's a bad ad. All right, so there's different benefits and why we do destination branding. There are a whole bunch listed right there. And of course, this is a big area of theory for a lot of places. And of course, in Canberra, we see a lot of destination branding built around places and spaces. It's nearly in all of the tourism advertising campaigns for Canberra. We see a lot of this. And we see a lot of different aspects of place and space used, from Enlighten Festival held in March all the way to the Balloon Festival held around the same time, to the nationals, as I call them, so all the national buildings and organisations and monuments we have. And of course, the biggest one in Canberra we see every year held across a multi-length period is Floriade, although I'd say Enlighten's catching up to Floriade. And these are all aspects these are all events and places and spaces which utilise where they are as a key part of their advertising and communications as well. But all across the world, we're seeing this happen. We see artists such as Banksy now appearing in ads about place and spaces, that billboard there from a small town in Spain. But that said, he doesn't want that to happen. He hates advertising, in fact. But this is all done to try and transform these quiet towns into must-see experiences. If you look at your own Instagram feed, for example, it's living proof of your own ability to advertise where you've been, of advertising those places and spaces and having them associated with your brand as something you're proud to have been. We all do it. It's a good way of looking at it and considering the area of theory, that's for sure. All right, hopefully everyone's still here and listening. This week is also down to cover a bit of research and database building. I'll say here as well that this area is best covered by marketing research. So what I'll touch on this across a couple different times and weeks, but you'll see what we'll do it in an advertising context right now. Okay, on to the next slide. So one of the big things in marketing right now is big data and how it's helping out communications. You will definitely need to learn how to build a database in marketing, even a simple one to help keep track of the effectiveness of advertising campaigns, not just with certain segments, but also with whatever the campaign you've just run. It's your learning base, it's your knowledge base, it's your skill base. It's something to go back to and understand what worked in the past, may work in the future with different markets. Without knowing who is responding to your marketing communications, who they are, how they might be responding, even the most simplest way, then you'll be literally working in the blind and you'll have no idea how you're tracking compared to your objectives. Now, that's going to be critical to your accountability one day, because people won't just give you money to make cool ads. They'll give you money to achieve objectives which help the organization grow and bring in revenue. So that cycle of database marketing as an image on the other side of the slide there really does highlight the importance of big data in marketing and advertising nowadays. You can see there it starts off with a strategy, and it's a bit of a waterfall then process all the way through those different steps, and how you design and look at your strategy. And you can see at the very end of it all is the IMC strategy and the creative brief. In other words, that the role of data comes a lot earlier in the process, so we're informed and know exactly how that market might behave and respond to what we do marketing wise. But that can only come about if you have a database, because that database is your knowledge. It gives you that history of how people may have responded in the past. I built several in my time. It's one of the first things I ever did in practice as a young grad was to build a database for a company I worked for. But you can definitely do them from scratch. There's different sites around. I'll give you another hyperlink there to go off where you can do it in around an hour to build up one for an email database. So it doesn't take that long to do, but it's something you do need to do over a long period of time. And keeping up with it, in this age of social, you should also be seeing what apps are hot. So, for example, TikTok came out of nowhere, now it's everywhere. And that's the thing you need to keep an eye on when you do social media marketing and advertising. These apps can sometimes come out of nowhere and become everywhere in like the space of months, not even just years. Now, that does let you know how quick the world of marketing and advertising does work. And that also should be part of your database is what apps are hot, how people use them, where you might be getting responses from or impressions and things like that, all those different metrics. But they're all part of also broader understanding of the market via intelligence. And, here's an interesting side story and breaks up the boring slides I'm doing right now. Years ago, when I was a young lad, I used to employ people to go clubbing to keep an eye on trends to inform their purchasing of clothing and accessories with the young'uns. I know this because some of my friends were lucky enough to get employed by Maya to do exactly that. And I'm not making it up, it's a true story. And that's all part of making sure that their purchases they are making for that segment were going to be effective, they were going to be accurate, and they were going to be moving the stock off the shelves. So that would have gone to a database. They would have then understood what trends were working, which ones were hot, and therefore that would have informed their purchasing decision and even their advertising campaigns. So this is how it all feeds in and links back into how you design an advertising campaign. Okay, on social media metrics, and I'll probably cover this nearly every week, the digital aspect, because that's what it is nowadays. But also keep an idea on social media metrics will sometimes vary per website. So also understand what's the effective metric for each one. So on Facebook, as an example, we have the rule of three. So likes, comments, and shares, and they go up in order from that. So the bottom of the tree is a like. Next one up is a comment, and the most powerful one you can get on Facebook is a share because it's that person resharing your original post, which means they're in a way now the source of that message, which means it comes with more credibility, and that's with their direct reference group. So it's a very powerful way of messaging and communication. Okay, so make sure you can back it all up. That's the important thing here as well. Make sure you go off and get that knowledge to understand what is going on with social media. Don't just go on the one you use because unless you're the target market, then that's not going to be knowledge which will be useful to many people. You need to think about how other people, be they Gen X or whatever the category of segment you're looking at, may use and look at social media. One other thing to consider in this area too is that we have nowadays what we call two types of information used by marketers in this area of big data, fast and slow information. And fast information is that which is instantaneous or near it, such as current trends on a social media site or in retail land. It comes usually via FPOS and transaction data. Can be near live. Most of the time it is live, but sometimes it's only a couple of minutes old, for example. So that's what we call fast information because it comes at you very quickly and in huge amounts. So that's one of the things nowadays about this sort of area of big data is that there is so much information to digest, to sift through, to categorize, to analyze, to prioritize. You need systems in place which can do that for you in seconds. And of course, that's already been done and automated by many people out there through marketing dashboards. That said, there is the other concept here of slow information, which is that which comes about over a far longer period of time. So think a longitudinal study here, or that done over multiple months, years even, which may have different inputs or variables or methods of analysis even, or even context and different ways to analyze that data. So it's slow progression or building of information over a longer period of time. The point is here is that your skills of critical analysis are going to count one day because you need to learn how to do both. You need to learn how to analyze both fast and slow information. And sometimes that will happen in timelines of hours. So in the space of a day, one business day, sometimes even minutes. And then you have to act on that information, understand how to change your IMC strategy, particularly with websites or social media apps where they are live. You can actually do this. And this is what we come up with, what they call A and B testing, which is done by companies like Google, for example. We have two different versions of a website going live to the market. So one's A, one's B, and then you use the information you have recorded, so your fast and slow information, and to see which of those websites is going to appeal best to the target market. Sometimes though, as the next slide will show you, that you may need to create your own metrics and table, and that can also be quite effective in this area. So here's the social metrics map. We'll cover this again in a few other slides. This is a good one to look at. It's a pretty simple one. It's one someone else has made up. I got it off the internet. But you can see the different stages there of the journey through awareness, consideration, decision, adoption, and they say advocacy. So they've changed that last one to confirmation, but you can say confirmation and advocacy might be the same thing. So it's a very simple decision-making model they've done there, and then you can see the objective at each one in a marketing sense. Then you've got social media strategy, and you can see what the strategy might be to do on social media. So this might be a handy playbook, as it were, to come back to for your campaign assignment. And then you can see the social activity going through all the way from what you might do with posts or influencers engaged. You can see that it's based on what we call a peso model, which we'll talk about in the next topic, but you can see it's owned, earned, and paid. And peso is a very big model nowadays, so we'll talk about it in the next topic. So you can come back to this slide, and I think I'll put this in the next topic anyway. So we'll come back and talk about this slide for sure. And then you've got social KPIs, and you can see how we might be measuring this across each stage of strategy and objective, and looking for that as an impact on the business itself. So these are all different things to look at and consider when it comes to building your own metrics map. This would have been done for an organization itself to track its own impact on its business level. So your business might have a different impact level, might be the same, who knows? You might be looking at different things to business. The important part here is that it's linked into the business objectives overall, and is not just looking at the impact across a very broader range of variables. So it's linked into probably what the business is after looking at anyway as an impact. Okay, so my 2 cents, you might say the summary for today. Build a database. It really does help. It was one of the things I could first do in marketing, and one of the things I still can, and I'm very proud of that fact. So learn how to do that because it's very, very handy, even in the digital age. On social media, dig around the sites. Just don't use them from a personal perspective, but also try and look at them from a professional one. So see what they're doing to get information, then to provide that information off to other organizations, but then how organizations are using that application or that site to try and achieve their advertising and communication objectives. Look at the type of ads being done on those sites. Look at the type of people active on them, from the influencers all the way to what content is being shared and posted, the creative angles being used. This is all part of the learning experience of doing advertising and comms in the digital age. It is really quick. So you're going to have to keep on top of these things Way after this course is over, you just have to keep on top of social media, because if you go for an interview or work for a company, having that knowledge is your value. Your value is what they pay you. So if you want to get more money and value in life, well, that's how you do it, is making sure you keep up to date with things. Okay, and that links into the final point is, in a way, you have to create all this big data yourself. But it's also fast and slow. So some things will come at you very, very quickly, and other things will come at you very, very slow. But gives you time to analyze things across a longer period of time. But you need to get those skills up, and you need to be able to do that big analysis of fast and slow data in, as I said, minutes to hours to even weeks or months. But most of the time in business, it's going to be a timeline of minutes and hours, not weeks or months. Okay, so that's it for this topic. Pardon me if my throat's going. I think I need to have a drink. And I'll see you and talk to you in the next topic.